especially since Brexit, there have been many accounts of people telling other people to not to speak one language but to use another language. What is it about public spaces that gives people the idea that they've got permission to intrude on private conversations?
This is very complicated because
that's why we have you here.
Well, the reality is that any prejudice against other cultures, other languages, it is usually linked to the education, yeah, and it was always like that. Especially in the UK, you have a country that, compared to Europe, mainland Europe, you differentiate people from the education, and you say, oh, this is class high, and low class, and it's all the education. When you don't see that much if you go to Spain, France, or Italy or Germany. So that is quite prominent. On top of that, you have to play that the media lately is playing that part. Every time we hear everything about Muslims, it's about things, and everything is playing about Muslims, and it's like the religion took place about to being evil all of a sudden. So it's a very toxic mix that is creating this. And it's exacerbating fears. And when you look about Brexit, the places that have higher voters of leave were places in which there were less immigrants. So it was clear, the more immigrants in a place, there were more remainers. The less immigrants they have, there were, so we say, why? Why the fear about immigration when there is not around? So, and it's all, I think, feed, especially through the media and all those things. And education plays a big part there. If people is not educated, because also if you look, the places in which there is lower level education or less access to further education, they were also leavers. So I think there's a mix there that solution is, I don't know, it's really difficult and to put in one sentence or to have one magic bullet to solve that if you want. But those are things that when you look at all these talks about what is happening, they are linked together. And Brexit have given people maybe an opportunity when they thought they couldn't talk, they couldn't say what they're feeling, because the system or society was putting pressure on them, and they're feeling economical pressure because of austerity and so on. Now this is that the bubble, they can steam out something and they use that one. When in reality they were discontent with many things about the European Union, maybe they were discontent with what is happening in the economy, but the bubble here is Brexit. So I think that's giving the opportunity to people to say something, and maybe, I don't know, if they're misplayed, those feelings. So I feel something here, but I liberate it here.
Chris, I'm back with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick on education and a little bit on attitudes as well that some people have mentioned. And I wanted to ask not just the panelists, but also our audience here, whether they've had any experiences, either through them being students at a younger age, or through their children at schools, whether teachers have raised any concerns about the presence of a second language interfering with English or slowing down English development, whether anyone has had any experiences like that.
My son is 4 now, he's going to nursery, and I've always had the staff there telling me that I should be speaking more to him in English, because his English is not so well developed yet, and I've always resisted that. And I was saying, well, he's going to pick it up anyway. He lives here, so. But they did, and they did, and they still do. They still think that I should be speaking more to him in English instead of Greek. I don't.
I would agree with you,
It's true that he's quite slow in English still, but he's picking up slower than my other son. But I have been told by the staff that I should be doing that with him more. I just refuse to.
Which probably bring us back to the question you were asking, the importance of institutions in terms of raising awareness about multilingualism as well. And sometimes these myths or misconceptions exist in relation to bilingual children, that the second language might interfere or slow down the development of the dominant language in society. And we actually have research that proves the contrary, that second language is going to help the first language, or any additional language will actually help. It will help with cognitive skills. So on average, students who are growing up with two languages are more likely to do better, for example, in English, if English is the majority language. And sometimes this kind of information, which is probably based on misconceptions, gets transferred to parents, and parents will want the best for their children to adjust and integrate and not stay behind their schoolwork, and might not resist like you are resisting.
I mean, it's very easy for parents to panic and be very stressed, because they give you like a piece of paper with all the stage developments that they need to tick. So it's a box they need to tick, what a child can do and what cannot do. And my son cannot do the things that he should be doing in his stage in English. But I say, well, he can do this and more than this in Greek. So I'm not panicking, but it's very easy for parents to stress that the child is behind, and probably he's not in his what is called a learning journey, something like that. He's not going to have those ticks, and so when he goes to reception next year, he's not going to have those ticks, and probably teachers will think that he's slower in capabilities, but he's actually not.
Yeah.
When I started school, I couldn't speak a word of English at 5 years old, and a little girl got my name wrong twice. I had no way of communicating to her that I found this hilarious. So I stuck my two fingers up at her to indicate she's got my name wrong twice. And of course my fingers were the wrong around, and that was my first lesson in English. I was stood in a corner for being naughty. And as you can tell, I can speak very fluent English now, and I write on a regular basis, so I think you're absolutely right, not to worry.
I think that teachers are in an extremely difficult position, in that they're very shackled by the system and targets, and I think that really there needs to be a complete culture shift in this country to value languages, to value language learning, and to not see it as a threat. But that's something that is going to take a long time and a lot of political will, and it has to come, I think, from the top. I think that, you know, in the teacher training programs, there needs to be aware that, you know, it's not a threat if the child is in this way. And I think as well, talking about what the school can do, I think that, especially in Leicester, where, you know, you have classrooms where, you know, you could have 20 languages spoken. It's impossible for the school to teach the languages, but I think the best thing that could be done is for there to be language awareness programs. And so, you know, making children aware of different languages and just having the focus on the value of language learning, and that it's not something that you need to hide or be ashamed of, or that you need to shift from your home language because this is the language that you need to be successful in society.
It's government policy.
That's it, yeah.
Teacher training.
Yeah.
It's targeted for students, and they have to meet certain progress,
Yeah.
and they are monitored, and they are actually forced, because they have to meet those targets, to say, oh, there have to be an improvement in English. I brought this stat that is actually the students which English is not the mother tongue. When you look at the UK, it's about, well, in 2005, it was about 12%, when in Leicester it was 45%. So that's a big difference.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of pressure put on parents through teachers which actually have this misbelief that they are not making the same
So
progress.
the role of language teaching in schools, I think, is a huge question. I've got 4 granddaughters. My 6-year-old granddaughter the other day, when I asked her what she did at school, she said tests. She's 6.
Yeah. That's the thing, with everything's so target driven now.
Yes.
There's no room for creativity.
It's crazy. We should have a session on that. Can I also throw into the pot questions about accent and dialect, classed questions? Because I know they're not the same, but their impact can often be quite similar. And the reason I say this is, a couple of months ago, we had Baroness Saida Varsi here to speak. We had a very big public audience. And she was fantastic performer, and a great presentation, and really engaging with the audience. And I was sitting listening to her thinking, what is it that's different about her that I haven't heard somewhere else? And I realised, having thought about it, it was that not only was she a woman of colour, very learned and brilliant presenter, she spoke with a deep Yorkshire accent. She was a northern woman. She was a British northern woman speaking in a British northern tongue. And you hardly ever hear women on television or in other places, women of real influence, talking, using those kinds of accents and dialects. She was using some Yorkshire expressions that people in the audience couldn't understand. And it just reminded me of how little those voices play out in public debate in this country. How little we hear the North in those kinds of scenarios. You know, I was thinking about this again, watching Newsnight endlessly, and waiting to hear a northern woman's voice. I can tell you can wait a long time to hear that. And so there's another kind of dimension of the linguistic turn here that, for me, is very interesting and important. I'm going to wrap this up, unless someone else has got a really pressing question they want to ask.
I've got a very interesting one, going back to the question.
You've got a question?
That's okay.
Yeah.
Is it allowed to have a member?
Yeah, of course.
Will I get ejected out with this?
It's transgressive when you're allowed.
I mean, the question I had was in terms of language learning in schools. There are so many different languages. So the question I guess is really, so and others, what languages, if we're going to have languages taught in schools, which ones do we start with? That's a big question. And secondly, I personally feel that languages are taught badly at school. And not purposefully, but my own experience of it is that it's not fun. And it goes back to what Marina was saying earlier on. It's got to be fun for kids to learn. Otherwise, it just becomes dull. It becomes another test.
Yeah. Well, motivation is everything for learning languages. If you are not motivated, if you are not enjoying it, it becomes dry. So, teachers are, in primary school we have excellent teachers, but they need to have the expertise. And the problem is that the vast majority are teaching French because they did a GCSE maybe, and they know a few words and they are trying to use that. So, first of all, if we want teachers to teach languages, we need to give them the expertise. Otherwise, let's bring experts, as we used to do in the past with PE and music, and so bring the people who know how to do it. And that could be arranged. There are many ways, and many communities have shown that they can do it. We have one language teacher or PE teacher or music teacher hired by many schools, so they can burn the cost of that. But that to address one thing. And then languages. Well, languages, I always say when students come to me and say, what language should I learn? Should I learn this for that, or Chinese for the future? And I say, no, learning language is like an ice cream flavor. What do you like? What is going to make you happy? Don't eat chocolate because everybody's eating chocolate. Whichever suits you, whatever you like, whatever you prefer, there is not, unless you have a particular reason, because you are going to work in Japan in the next 3 years, okay, you have a very good reason, or because you are now meeting a person that is from this country. But if you want, go with whatever things you want. So in that case, in languages, in primary schools, it could be anything that will suit students. And if you look at the ethnicity and the background and the interest of the students, why not asking them? It could be anything that might be interesting to them. So it doesn't have to be, oh, let's do Chinese because it's the future, or let's do French because we have it just next to us. Any language could be taught, and even communal language. If you think that Gujarati should be the language, why not?
But there has to be a long-term strategy, there has to be a next step, there has to be
Of course.
what they can take
Yes.
then in secondary school, and so it's...
I understand that it has to be that, but if we focus only on the languages, that's what is killing languages and local languages. Saying, oh, let's go for the prominent things. And the thought that, oh, everything in the world can be dealt with English is actually killing many other languages by default. So what we need is to promote languages, and not have to be a strategy and the school could do it, but if we start thinking, though, we have to be a language that will have a future or a particular purpose, I think we are actually supporting.
But then one thing that I wanted to mention earlier was in the Languages at Leicester programme. I'm amazed that there isn't the space, for example, to learn Gujarati. Or there's nowhere in the city. Earlier on in the year I wanted to take some Gujarati lessons. There was nowhere that I could take some Gujarati lessons unless I got a private tutor. 11.5 or over 10% of the population of this city are first language Gujarati speakers. And I think that there's questions, like in the school, it's questions all the time of profitability versus multilingual reality, and that's the thing of the Languages at Leicester as well. What would be great would be if there could be a greater link between the multilingual reality of this city and what we can offer.
We did a mistake on that. We went through Hindi. We are happy to have Hindi, but we should have other languages. For example, Gujarati and Punjabi. We should be offering that. It's our plan. We made a mistake in that, and actually we realized that we need to support it. We have plans already to support it, but we need to put it in place.
Because there must be a space. You know, I think there must be a demand, but it's being hidden at the moment.
Well, we are always fighting that thing that we want to use the profit of other languages, more popular languages, for example, Spanish, to support other languages. It's a difficult battle, and it will vary depending on who you are speaking with in the case. But our view from Languages at Leicester is that we want to support those languages, even if they are not as popular as other languages, and we don't meet the minimum numbers.
I think that it could be popular though, but there's got to be dialogue with the community. I think that if a relationship could be fostered with the community, it could be profitable. But there has to be the divide between the university and what's going on a mile down the road in Belgrade. There needs to be a link made, either us going out or somehow bringing people in.
Yeah, I agree.
Marina, I'm going to give you the last word on this. I'm guessing you're going to say Greek.
No, I have a question first. Are you talking about adult education?
Yes.
So adults learning?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there will be a supplementary school that teaches the language, so...
I tried, I talked to Belgrade Community Centre, I was trying to find some adult lessons, and it was really hard. I couldn't find
Really? There are no tutors?
if I'd done like a one-on-one tutor, but what I really wanted was to go to a class with other people learning.
Yes.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, and not all supplementary schools offer adult classes, so...
Maybe there was something that I couldn't find, but...
So in terms of what language to learn at schools, I think it's very difficult for schools because it's a matter of logistics. So if there is no interest, and it's the same in our school as well. So if we don't have enough number of students to create a class and hire a teacher to teach them, it will be impossible to do it. So ideally it would be nice to offer all languages, but I don't think it's practical. I think it's impossible to do it. So at the end of the day, it's up to the numbers. So how much interest there is in the language, and then it's up to what motivates them. Is it because they like it? Is it because they want to go work in another country? You can never know. In terms of making the lessons fun, it's actually very difficult because, talking from a personal experience, when I used to teach in Greece and Cyprus before I moved to the UK, so I was teaching Greek as a mother tongue. And when I arrived here, I wasn't trained in how to teach heritage language learners. So I used the same methods as the ones I used back in Greece and Cyprus, and I failed. So, but I started searching and investigating and going to trainings and conferences and seminars. So I trained myself in how to do it, and I experimented a lot with during my first year. I was actually in London. I was teaching in Greek schools in London, so I experimented a lot, and it was through personal experience that I realized that I had to include educational games in my teaching, because I would lose the students. I could see them, they were so tired coming to the school in the afternoon after going to their mainstream school. So I could not have them sitting in a chair and reading and writing all the time. So I started exploring how to teach a second language or a foreign language, and then I had to link them to the culture and bring elements of the culture as well in it. And yeah, now I have a variety of sources and games, and I'm trying to pass that knowledge to my staff as well. So I'm spending a lot of time during the week talking to them, suggesting activities they can do so that they make their lessons more fun. And I invest a lot in training the staff in using fun activities and techniques while teaching. It's not easy because it's difficult to find staff that I don't think maybe if you find someone who has studied teaching English as a second language or Spanish or any other language, they might have the knowledge, but I'm also looking for Greek native speakers. So it's really difficult to find Greek native speakers who know how to teach a second language or a heritage language. So I'm spending a lot of time in training them and help them reaching a level where they feel confident in teaching their students as well. Because now I feel confident, but it's my 7th year. So when I started, I didn't feel like that.
Okay. Well, Martin, Haseeb and Marina, I think we all should thank them for coming along and talking to us this afternoon, so let's give them a round of applause. Lots of woken up as well in the front. Thanks for coming. We'll do something else next year, something a bit bigger, let's say, and a little more wide-ranging, but this is a great start. So thank you for coming to do this today.
And